Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's AdvocateHub class. I see there's a lot of people here, so that's nice to see. And this week, we're going to be talking about experiences. So the reasoning behind this class is lately there's been a lot of questions coming into the support desk about experiences, and I kind of wanted to clarify some issues, some common issues that people have been asking. So that is the main point of this class. So if you fully understand experiences, you have no problems, you're an expert, then maybe this won't be the class for you. But if you have any confusion or you're even new, a lot of people in the VIP challenge mentioned they haven't even heard of experiences before. So this would be a great lesson for those people. So first, who am I? I am Don. I am one of the Influitive support magicians, one of the people who will answer you if you email support@influitive.com. And the goals of today's class, let's talk about those first. So at the end of today's class, basically I want everybody to be able to confidently set up an experience on your own and to understand who will be able to access your experience. That'll get into public versus private experiences, targeting, and whatnot. Also, I want you to understand how challenges should be configured. So that's targeting to an experience, targeting within an experience. And then finally, how to get people in and out of an experience. So that means how can people access your experience, whether they're advocates or not. And finally, what can you do with people who joined your experience after the experience is over. And we're going to tackle this issue by covering three major themes. And these are the themes of all of the questions I've been getting recently, in addition to the questions from Influitive VIP. So the first theme is why use an experience at all? So what's the purpose? Why not just use the hub? And theme number two, who can access my experience? Again, that's public and private and targeting and all of that. And finally, what can I target to members of an experience? Those are the three themes of the questions I received. And we have some additional questions at the end. You can ask those, and I have some from the challenge as well. And finally, at the very end, we're going to have a special announcement from Influitive VIP, and that is the winner of the airline tickets raffle. So stay tuned for that. So let's begin with the first very general question. A few people asked this same kind of thing, but I think Alyssa's question probably sums it up nicely. So her question is, an experience kind of like a theme where you participate in challenges that are relevant to a theme, activity, event that's going on. So basically, she's asking, what is an experience? Right? Why am I using experience? What's the point? And from my view, I guess, an experience is meant to be a temporary experience. I realized I used the same word twice, but I couldn't find an appropriate word because it is meant to be a temporary experience for an advocate. So that includes conferences, events, and some people are using it for onboarding scenarios, as well as campaigns and whatnot. But basically, an experience is generally not something that sticks around for a very long time. It's, number two, it's a highly focused area of your hub. So all of the challenges that are relevant to the event or conference or scenario campaign, they're all grouped together, easy to find, so they're all focused in one area of the hub. And finally, it's a highly visible component. So without the experience, it might be hard to find all of the relevant challenges for this event or conference. But with an experience, it's very easy to find all of the challenges you're looking for. And we'll go into how that's possible. So let's start with theme number one. A lot of people asked a similar question, but basically the question is, why not just use the hub? Why use an experience at all? Why not just through challenge targeting, challenge unlocking, segmentation, that kind of thing? Why not just use the hub and challenges within the hub? So how are they different from a normal hub? Asked Kristen. And Kayla asked, what's the separation between an experience and a normal hub? And finally, Heather asked, should I use them for trade show events or things that I could create multiple challenges for? So I think what Heather's asking, why not just use regular challenges, regular segmentation for challenges? And I have a pretty good reason for that. If you remember the time before experiences are kind of a new product. But in the past, if you ever had an event or a conference going on, the only way to really group challenges together was to either use a challenge type. For example, here it's AdvocateHub challenge type, or people often just prepended the name of the conference before the challenges. And as you can see, it's not immediately obvious that these are all for AdvocateHub. It is obvious that once you read it, but it doesn't slap you in the face. This is for AdvocateHub. So that's where, I guess, experiences comes in. So let's compare that past slide with this slide. Now you can see as soon as the advocate comes into the hub, they can see a very big, very clear call to action to head into the experience. And then within the experience, there's a differentiation with the colors. The colors are inverted. And further, you can add your conference or event logo. That was not possible pre-experiences. And if you don't use experiences, again, it'll be a lot more difficult for your advocates just to find all of the challenges that are related to your event or whatever it is you're using experiences for. So that is, why use experiences. And if you have any further questions about that, you can ask at the end. But let's move quickly on to more technical details, I guess. And so the second theme, a lot of questions have been coming in around who can access my experience. And this is where we get into the differentiation between public and private, as well as targeting experiences. So Katie asked this question. I thought I heard that you could use them, experiences, for people who aren't advocates yet. For example, at events. How does that work? Well, you heard correctly, Katie, and we'll talk about that. That's leaning more towards the public experience for people who are not advocates yet. And Kim also asks, who can be targeted for an experience? So who can see an experience that is, can a prospective customer be targeted for an experience? So I guess in that case, they're not an advocate yet because they're a prospective customer. And finally, she asked, but can they be prevented from accessing the general portal or hub? That one's a little bit more complicated, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. But both of these questions are mostly leading towards the public experience side. But before we get into explaining the public experience, we should talk about the other type of experience, which is the private experience. So in your experience settings, you can choose either public or private. But for a private experience, who has access to this experience? In this case, it would be only joined advocates who match the targeting criteria. So as you can see in my segmentation rules below, only people who are members of this AdvocateHub 2015 attendees group will be able to see my experience. This is based on the fact that it's a private experience. No one else, no external people, and nobody who's not an advocate. So only joined advocates who are a member of this group will be able to see that. And this targeting interface doesn't have to be just used for groups. It works exactly the same way as the interface in challenges, groups, and rewards. So on a high level, anybody who is already a joined advocate and matches the targeting criteria is able to see or access this experience. So the next question would be, how can these people who are in my hub access that? How can they get into it? They have the ability to get there, but how? So the option one, as we looked at before, you'll see a challenge card which has a bold colored outline, which uses the primary color of your hub in your branding settings. So they will see this big challenge card. They'll be able to click into that as we showed before. And option number two, they can actually be given direct access through the experience URL. So the experience URL will bypass the main hub, like the regular hub, and go right into the experience. So if an existing advocate clicks on this and it's a private experience, they're going to go directly into the experience. Now, that was fairly straightforward, the private experience. Basically, anybody who is a current advocate and targeted, and the current advocate who has that experience URL and is targeted to the experience can get in. But you may want, as Kim and Katie asked, how can people who are not advocates get in? And this is as simple as making your experience private, or public, sorry. You make it public and just give anybody this experience URL. That includes not advocates. So there's two types of people in this case who will be able to see your experience. Anybody who signs up using the experience URL. In addition, joined advocates are also able to see the experience if they match the targeting criteria. So in the case of AdvoCamp, we wanted to have a public experience where anybody from the outside can join, but we also wanted current advocates to see it. So we created a group and put all of the AdvoCamp attendees into this group so that on top of all of the people joining from outside, all of the advocates who we know are AdvoCamp attendees can also see this experience. Now, let's move on to what the experience might be like for a non-advocate. So here is my friend Adam. Adam wants to join my experience. He's not an advocate in my hub yet, so how can he do it? Well, all he needs is that experience URL, which we saw in the last slide. He goes to that experience URL, enters a new username and password, and he is brought directly into the experience. He bypasses all the rest of the hub, all of the other challenges. He goes right into the experience. But you'll notice there is a back to Influitive VIP link on top of the experience. That will be back to whatever your hub name is. All of these people, including the non-advocates, they are able to go back into your hub. So Kim asks, is there any way to stop people from accessing your main hub? And the answer is not really. You can adjust targeting, and we can talk about that later. But basically, anybody who joins using the experience URL, they essentially become an advocate. So that brings up a couple other considerations. So these considerations, once Adam joins using this experience URL, he is in fact an advocate of your hub. However, he is not a member of any group. He goes into the hub as a member, not in a group. But also, Adam can return to the main hub, or this regular Advocate Hub, and view challenges, rewards, and community forums, but only those that are targeted to everyone. So I guess a kind of workaround in Kim's case, where she doesn't want people to access the main hub, would be to have nothing open to everyone in your hub. That's kind of, if you have things that are open to everyone, then they will see those. If not, then basically when they go back to Influitive VIP, for example, if there are no everyone challenges, no everyone rewards, they will not be able to access anything. Okay, I see Summer has a question. We'll address that at the end, because as we're coming to a close. And at the end is theme 3. That's targeting things to an experience. So what exactly can be targeted to members of an experience? At a high level, only challenges can specifically be targeted to an experience. So only challenges will have this option. When you go and configure your targeting for a challenge, you're able to select the experience that this challenge should live in. So the short answer is only challenges. But the long answer, which we'll get into later, is using groups, anything really. So assuming that you have your conference or your event group that contains all of your attendees, they will be able to see whatever rewards you have targeted at that group. But remember that as someone comes in from a public experience URL, they're not going to be in any group. So they're not going to see that until we deal with them. And we can talk about that in a couple minutes. So let's go back to the short answer, which is only challenges. And here is where I see a lot of confusion or kind of redundant targeting happening in lots of hubs. So the only thing, the basic thing you need to do is choose which experience you want this hub to be in. So in this case, we have AdvoCamp. And after that, the targeting includes everyone, but in this case, it's everyone who is in the experience, not everyone in the main hub. So this causes some confusion because I've seen a lot of people who, well, in addition to targeting the experience to AdvoCamp, or the challenge to AdvoCamp, sorry, also target this challenge to AdvoCamp attendees. But the goal of this is to have this challenge available to all members of the experience. So it's not necessary to add this additional level because you're basically saying the same thing. So on top of that, then let's explain exactly how challenge targeting works within an experience. And the easy answer is it works exactly the same. So, however, it only applies to members of the specified experience. That means that challenge unlocking will work exactly the same. And you can see in my example here, this challenge is open to customers in all 3 levels, but it's only open to those customers if they are a member of the AdvoCamp experience. So it's a subset of advocates. So all of the advocates in the AdvoCamp experience can see it if I choose everyone, if not, based on the rules that I choose. So in that way, it works exactly the same, yet only applies to members of the specified experience. So to answer one question we had is how can we target rewards, badges, and forums? So target them to members of an experience. So if you remember, I said, if you have a public experience, people are not in a group. So for scenario 1, it's really easy, though, for existing advocates. So you can target your rewards or your community forum to members of the experience group. So in our case, we put all of the AdvoCamp attendees into one group. So it's very easy to target appropriate rewards to that group. However, in scenario 2, people who join through the public experience URL are not members of any group, or specifically your conference or event group by default. So we cannot target them based on experience membership. So what do we do now? So it's a little bit of a hacky way of doing it, but we need to get them into your group. So they join from the experience URL, they're not in any group. How can we persuade them to get into this group? And the easiest, the simplest way is to use this join a AdvocateHub group stage. That's one of your stage options when you're creating a challenge. And the group that we want them to join is the one that is relevant to my conference, my event, or my campaign. So in this case, it's the 2015 AdvoCamp attendees again. So we'll use this challenge. When they complete this challenge, they will then be in the relevant group. And then going forward, I can target rewards, community forums, badges, etc. to these people. And it's the way to convince people to get into this group or to complete this challenge, because essentially if they do complete this challenge, we can make this a very attractive challenge. So specify, if you want to get access to any of the rewards or prizes or badges at this conference, you must complete this challenge. So it gives them a little bit more reason to get in there. Okay, I hope all that makes sense. And finally, let's ask, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat room. But while you're asking, I actually have a couple questions that I picked up, some interesting ones from the VIP challenge. So Judith asked, I want to use experience, but I'm trepidatious because I can't preview what they'll look like before going live. So she asked, what's the best way to test and view the experience before making it public? And yeah, there isn't really a way to preview it, but there is kind of an easy way to work around this. So first, make your experience private because you don't want people getting in there. I put step 2 and 3 in the wrong order. Good job. So you create a test advocate, step 2, and then set your targeting criteria of your experience to only include your test advocate. This means that when I join or sign in using my test advocate, since I'm the only one who's targeted at this experience, I'm the only one who can see it. This is a good way that you can go through what your experience is going to look like to an advocate and nobody else can get in. I hope that answers the question. And then the second question, I forgot to put who this came from, but they ask, I want event attendees to join my experience, but I don't want any existing advocates to see it. Unfortunately, there is no real answer to this one other than the fact that we can kind of work around it through another kind of hacky way. But basically, since the question is I want attendees, so people who are not advocates, to see it, but not existing advocates. So step 1, all you need to do is make your experience public so that anybody who joins using the public experience URL can get in. And step 2, you can set your targeting criteria of your experience to a single dummy or test advocate. Because remember, existing advocates follow the rules of this experience targeting. So before I had all of my experience targeted to only be available to members of the conference group. But in this case, I'm just putting a test advocate here so that, in fact, nobody except this test advocate can actually see it unless they enter through that public URL. So at step 3, you can send that public URL to event attendees. I hope that made sense. And additionally, I guess we have one question from Summer. So Summer asks, when you send the public URL for the experience, they need to sign up with name and email first. Yep, they need to sign up with name and email and create a password. They don't have to click a join code link. No, so an experience URL takes place of the join code link. And the second question is, can you have a different landing page for an experience from your general AdvocateHub? No, unfortunately, currently there's only one landing page, and that is the one that is for your general hub, your hub's general sign-up page. That is not an option at the moment. So Judith asks one more question. We offer weekly live online training to customers. I wanted to create an experience about that for advocates. I wasn't sure if I should create a forum or an experience. What would be the best approach? I think probably a forum might be the best idea, because if we were thinking of an experience as a temporary event, something that only lasts for a few days or a few weeks, then that's kind of the goal of the experience. Experiences are not going to be around for a long time. So I think the forum is probably a better option so that you can get engagement within your community. So definitely from my perspective, and you can head over to the VIP community and why not ask that question to other people as well, because this is only my opinion, but why not get the opinions of all the other advocate marketers out there, because I am definitely not the expert.
Thanks for watching AdvocateHub class. Be sure to click on the subscribe button below. Also check out some of the other classes on the right side of the video.